Good morning and welcome. We were worried we didn't see you in your seats, but then we're done with our song, and there you are. Welcome, Unity of Kalamazoo. My name's Brent Decker. I'm your music director and pianist, and we've got John Moody and Carolyn Keeble up here on bass and drums. Joining us is Deb, and she's going to sing our opening songs for today, which is Swing Wide the Doors. So let's get going, and let's sing together Swing Wide the Doors. Here we go.
Good morning. Between masks, glasses, earrings, it is no small feat to get from the pew up here, but we will give it a try. My name is Lynn Sager. I'm your platform assistant this morning. It's nice to see everybody. Thanks to our music team who helps get this morning together, and in fact, thanks to everyone who helps get this service put together throughout the week and on Sunday morning. PowerPoint, our streaming video, ushers, hospitality, script, a lot of people make this service happen, so we're glad you're here to join us. Just one quick comment, if you are here visiting us for the first time, welcome. We're glad you are here. There's a card in the pew for you to fill out and return to an usher who will be at the back of the sanctuary after service. As you leave, you can give that to them, and they will welcome you, answer any of your questions, and they have a small gift bag for you. So thank you for being here. So now, if you will join me for our mission statement, vision statement, and core values, we will read those out loud together. And our mission statement, as an all-inclusive community, we awaken to spirit, grow into our soul, and build a better world. And our vision, we celebrate a world ever awakening consciousness, abundance, peace, and love for all. And our core values of love, authenticity, stewardship, oneness, and playfulness. And we'll have Deb come back up and do our song to bring us into meditation in the daily word. before we move into the daily word and meditation, I want to do a brief introduction of our guest speaker today. We have Gabriel with us today, and we are so glad he is back. And he is going to lead us he's going to read the daily word and lead us in meditation. But first, let me give you just a little bit of background on him. Gabriel's a multi-award winning national keynote speaker and poet who has dedicated the last 15 years to helping others heal themselves through the art of writing, performance, and mindfulness. He is the co-founder and executive director of Speak It Forward, which is a nonprofit dedicated to using the power of the arts and mindfulness to uplift and empower underserved populations through conscious community building, grassroots organizing, and by actively opposing systemic injustice to create a more connected and equitable community. He's also a lead facilitator with the Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation group here in Kalamazoo. And having lived in 3 different countries and 6 states, Gabriel brings a broad and diverse perspective to his work. As a U.S. Army veteran and a cancer survivor, he has learned the power of connecting with others through honesty and vulnerability, and how words have the ability to unite, transform, and inspire others. Aside from 2 degrees, Gabriel holds multiple certifications in mindfulness training and trauma-informed healing. He loves learning and teaching, and he believes the path of personal growth is equally 1 part walked alone and 1 part traveled with others as part of a conscious community. So let's welcome Gabriel. And first of all, we will have him do the daily word, but let's welcome him as...
I don't have any earrings, so I'm all right. Good morning, everybody. It is my privilege and honor to be here with you today. Today's daily word is compassionate. I am a compassionate presence. In periods of peaceful contemplation, I immerse myself in the unconditional love that joins the human family together in God. As the awareness of divine love fills my mind and heart, it dissolves all memories of difficulties and feelings of discord. Centered in divine love, I deeply feel my oneness with God and with all people. I now see the people in my life anew. Beholding the divinity of each dear one I meet, my heart overflows with empathy as I respond to their troubles and celebrate their triumphs. I am patient. I listen with intention. I recognize their divinity as I recognize my own. I welcome the flow of the divine love as it blesses me, as well as those with whom I am sharing my compassion. So now I'd like to lead you in a meditation. I invite you to close your eyes if that feels comfortable for you. If not, please find a focus point in front of you. And let's begin by taking 3 deep breaths in through the nose and out through the nose if it's available to you. With each breath, allowing us to sink just a little bit deeper in this moment, welcoming in any sounds, sensations that are present for us today. And I'd like to do a short exercise in this mindfulness that will also lead into my talk today. What I'd like to do is I'm going to offer you 2 words, one at a time. And with each word, I just want you to repeat it to yourself over and over again and notice any thoughts, sensations, images, memories that may be present for you with each word. So the first word that I want you to repeat to yourself over and over and over again is the word trouble. 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 Just being aware of what thoughts, what images, or even what body sensations might be present for you when you repeat the word trouble. 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 And mindfulness is not about changing anything or fixing anything, but just learning how to be present with what is. So just being present with that word and just noticing. And that's enough for that. Taking another breath in through your nose and out through your nose, letting that word wash away, coming back to the moment. The second word I'd like you to repeat over and over to yourself is the word kindness. 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 Noticing what different images, thoughts, memories, or somatic sensations are present for you with the word kindness. 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 And again, not trying to hold on to, change, or fix, but just being present with the word and with whatever arises. And you can stop repeating that word to yourself now. Taking another breath in through the nose, out through the nose, if it's available for you. And being aware and present of what the difference was between those two words. Did you notice different thoughts? Did one feel more pleasant or unpleasant? Was one more difficult to tap into? Did you resist anything that came forward? And also being aware that nothing had changed in our external worlds. Rather just a simple word that was repeated over and over to ourselves. Recognizing the importance of the messages that take place in the internal. And so to finish our meditation today, I would like you to think of something that brings you joy, gratitude, almost an effortless smile that may appear on your face when you think of this person or memory or pet or time in your life, a place, whatever it is. Just welcoming in something that brings you gratitude, something that brings you joy. Again, noticing any shifts in the physical, emotional, or mental states of being. Allowing our breath to be an anchor. Recognizing that at any moment, at any point in our day, we can choose the messages that we repeat to ourselves. What words, what stories, what messages are we offering to ourselves on a daily basis? Are they words of kindness, of gratitude, of compassion? Or are they words of trouble? Anytime we get lost in our own thoughts, we can come back to the breath, come back to our anchor of gratitude, of joy. And I invite you all to take 3 last deep breaths. With each breath, becoming more aware of your surroundings, more aware of this physical body, the light on the other side of our eyelids, and of the stories that we tell ourselves. Whenever you are ready, no rush at all, I invite you to slowly open your eyes back into the space.
Good morning. Our special music this morning will be provided by Samuel Nalangira, our resident musician here. Most of you have experienced his musical magic in the past. He's going to be sharing some original music on the adungu. This is one of his traditional instruments from Uganda. And maybe, Samuel, if you want to share something more about the piece.
Yeah. Morning. Today is a very special day for me to be here because I was not expecting myself to be here today. Yeah, I didn't know. I just went back home yesterday and my wife was like, "You have to play at Unity." I was like, "What? I don't see that on my schedule." So, yeah, so then what happened? We're in the process of watching one of the movies called The Girl Who Believes in Miracles. So I watched that movie. It taught me a lot of things. Sometimes we see people, because they are young, we don't believe that they have so much powers to play for us, and and our life changes. When you go home, I would request you to watch that movie, The Girl Who Believes in Miracles. Everything was just like a miracle. She played someone who was lame and started walking. She played someone who was blind, and that person started seeing. And she played someone who had cancer, who was just remaining with like 7 days to die, and that person came back to normal life. So when I was meditating, so everything, it was just coming to my mind. And this song I'm gonna play for you is called "Don't Lose Hope." Sometimes we get through so many problems, but those problems, they make us to feel like we should lose hope. Once you're still breathing in this world, everything is possible, and never lose hope. Today you can fail to do something. Tomorrow you can do it. You still have a lot of time. So don't lose hope. It's the song I'm gonna play for you. Thank you.
So beautiful. Let's have another round of applause for that. What a great way to start. Don't lose hope. By a show of hands, how many of you are going to look back on these last 2 years with great fondness? Okay, it's just a couple of us. So I have a confession. I've been making a living as a speaker for the last almost 14 years now, full time. And there's this thing that happens when you speak and people want you to come in. They want you to turn in an outline of what you're going to say. And I get it. I've been putting on shows. You kind of want to know what's going to happen and what's going on. It's part of the thing. But I'm always so resistant to turning in an outline of what I'm going to say, because I feel like the second that you put that down in concrete language, it removes that ability to be present. Right? It takes away some of that freedom of being able to go wherever you are. So I'm always kind of like that resistant, like, oh, you want me to turn in an outline? Can I just give you a few words about what I want to talk about? Because the second we lock down those stories, those become our truth. And I've found that, and research supports in psychology, is that we don't actually often react to what happens to us. We react to the perception of what is happening to us, right? And so we create those stories in our minds about what's good, what's bad, what's happening, what's not. And because our brain is designed for us to survive and not thrive, those tend to be the worst possible case scenario perceptions, oftentimes to protect us, right? We jump to conclusions about things, and we jump to often the worst conclusions. Not always, but often enough. When I was growing up, I grew up actually in upstate New York in this really amazing community that was full of diversity of ideas and thoughts and peoples and religions. And so I grew up to be very open-minded and accepting and understanding of others. And then my parents started to go through the process of divorce when I was about 7 years old. And my mom's family was from just outside of Kalamazoo in a place called Richland, Michigan. And so I moved from a very diverse and open-minded new place in New York to Gull Lake. And needless to say, I struggled a little bit with that transition. But during that process, I actually went to 4 different schools in 4 years. And the story that I told myself was that if my own father isn't going to stay in the same household as me, and if every year I have to move and make new friends, the message I started telling myself was that I was not worth staying and that everybody was going to leave me at some point in my life. And because I so wholeheartedly believed that, by the time I was 10, I started to do this magical thing, which was attract people into my life who was going to reinforce that message. Right? The self-fulfilling prophecy we often do. There's something that's interesting about being right, even when it doesn't feel good. And so I started to attract people into my life who would leave, either by me forcing them to push them out so that I could be right, or because I would attract the type of personalities who were going to leave. Some who even left not by choice. My mom was one of 11 kids in a large family. And my grandparents were amazing, lovely people. And my grandfather, Serafino Gasmundo, he did such an amazing job of teaching our family just to be open and loving and kind. And I was very close to him. And he was kind of like the male role model in my life that I looked up to. And when I was 16 years old, he passed away. And I was, let's say, not making the best choices in my life at that time. And actually, are you all familiar with what mock elections are in high school? Do you remember these? They're like most likely to succeed or best dressed or whatever. I got voted class bully and class poet of my high school. So it's a very weird combination, right? Like, I was like, don't get close to me or I'll beat you up, but I'll write you a poem to say I'm sorry. And so even though I wasn't making the greatest choices, my family knew that I loved writing, and I had written this poem about my grandfather, and my family asked me to speak at his funeral. So of course I ended up getting up at the podium, and this was my opportunity to look out into the crowd for the first time because I'd been sitting in the front. And when I got up and I looked out, I realized that it was a standing room only funeral service. The pews were packed, and there were people against the walls, and even people sitting on the floor. And this was a man who didn't have a lot of material objects. He had 11 kids, right? So he couldn't afford a lot of things. But growing up in that environment in Richland, I had been taught a lot of my life that success was defined by money, by what you had physically, materially. And I used to wonder, what I was going to grow up and be like, given the poor choices that I was making. But that was one of those moments that led me to change my life, instead of being extremely sad for losing him and being angry, was given this aha moment, because when I looked out, I had a sudden insight into, I wonder what what would my funeral be like? What would people say if they came to my funeral? And I had to be honest, the stories that I was able to come up with, I didn't like. And I realized that I had to do something about it. I had a teacher who asked me once, if I had to hear the voices in your head for 24 hours, would I have a good day? And I thought, you know what? I don't know if you would. And I had to start to own that as part of my own journey, of my own path. And so I didn't have a lot of options at that time. I wasn't making good choices in school, and we didn't have a lot of money. And so I enlisted in the military. And 7 months into my enlistment, I found myself stationed overseas in Germany. I had just been given a promotion that was going to allow me to travel all around the world, and Italy and France and Spain and all these places I never thought that I was going to be able to go to. But I had to go get a checkup and make sure that I had all the right vaccinations to go into the different countries and all this stuff. And so I go in, and the doctor sits me down, and they do a full checkup. And as I'm getting dressed, he says, I need you to come into my office when you're done getting dressed. And so I went in there, and he was on the phone, and he was talking about a bunch of medical and military jargon I didn't quite understand. He hung up the phone, and I sat down, and he looked me in my eyes, and he said, Gabriel, he said, I have some bad news. He says, I think you might have cancer. He said, we have to send you to the major medical facility in Landstuhl, Germany tomorrow to confirm, but I just wanted to tell you that the results may come back. So I'm 18, I'm thousands of miles away from my family. I don't know what's going on. I go to this appointment the next day, Tuesday, in Landstuhl, Germany. They do an ultrasound and more blood work, and the results come back, and they confirm you do have cancer. But it wasn't just cancer. I had testicular cancer, and I was 18 and a male in the military with all this macho machismo around me, and they're telling me I have to lose one of my testicles, which is like the end of the world for an 18-year-old guy. And so that Thursday, I have the surgery, and Saturday, they send me back to the United States to Walter Reed Army Medical Center for 2 weeks of checkups. They do a full CAT scan, more blood work. The doctors come into my office, or in my hospital room that Monday, and they say, we have more bad news. Not only do you have cancer, but it's spread throughout your entire body. You have a 14 by 6 centimeter mass of cancer in your abdomen. It's moved behind your lungs, into your neck. It's working its way towards your brain. If it had been another month before we found this, there would have been nothing that we could do. We'd be sending you home on terminal leave. We have to start chemotherapy tomorrow. So in 1 week, my life goes from this amazing promotion and traveling around the world to, I don't know if I'm going to live. And I'll save you all the gory details, but I spent 2 years and 9 months at this hospital. 4 cycles of chemotherapy, 4 major surgeries, dozens of minor procedures. And I remember the story I was telling myself was that somehow I deserved this, or that no one else could understand this difficult struggle that I was going through. But 6 months into my battle with cancer, one of my surgeries happened to be on September 10th of 2001. And so I woke up the next day to 9/11, stationed in Washington, D.C., and my life again changed. So I spent the next 2 years and 3 months being surrounded by people who were coming back from the war. And some of these people were coming back missing legs and arms. There was a guy on my hospital floor who had 90% body burns over his entire body. He had lost all of his friends in an IED explosion. He was the lone survivor. And again, this power of perception and storytelling hit me. And I went, is it possible that even though I'm going through the worst possible case scenario that I can imagine, that I'm actually lucky, that I'm blessed, that there's an opportunity to see gratitude in this moment? And so my mind started changing a little bit of the way that I was looking at things, and as I was moving through this process. And eventually I got to the point where I got a clean bill of health. They said, we're going to release you back into civilian life. And people started asking me that question that is always proposed to young people as they're about to venture into something new. What do you want to do with the rest of your life? Because we all know that 18 and 21-year-olds know exactly what they're going to do. And I realized that, the truth of it is sometimes we overcomplicate things. But I had another small gift or curse blessing, depending on the way that you wanted to look at it. The doctors had told me that because of the progression of my cancer and the aggressive treatment they had to pursue, I had a 65% chance of getting leukemia in the next 15 to 20 years. So my timeline for what I wanted to do was a little bit potentially shorter. And I realized what I wanted to do was I wanted to be happy. And I didn't really care about the roles and rules and things that were placed on me or that I decided to ingest from a societal standpoint. So I decided that what I was going to do was going to go to school for something that I loved. Ever since I was 5 years old, I wanted to be a writer, but everybody told me that I'd never be successful doing it. Not that I couldn't do it or wouldn't be good at it, but success is in I wouldn't make money doing it. And I thought, you know what? I don't care. I want to enjoy the time that I have left. So I went to school for creative writing and film. I fell in love with it. Here's a guy who barely graduated from high school. I graduated from college with a 3.8 GPA. I was happy. I sat in the front row of all of my classes. I was engaged. I was enjoying it. And I had an opportunity to go get my master's degree on a full ride scholarship at Columbia College. And then I met this guy in this thing called slam poetry. And his name was Kirk. And he was a teacher at Portage Northern High School, and an English teacher, and he also loved writing. And we were total opposites. I'm not gonna lie, he was obnoxious and loud and crazy, but he was also hilarious. And we clicked for whatever reason. Our opposites just worked with each other, and we started performing together, and we started this business together, and we started a nonprofit together, and we started performing under this name called Kinetic Effect, and we got to tour around the country, and we were on America's Got Talent, and we got to perform at the Apollo. And Kirk decided to quit his job, and I decided to turn down this opportunity for a full ride scholarship to pursue a career as full-time spoken word poets. We were making no money at the time. Kirk had just had a newborn baby boy. And this was, in hindsight, probably a ridiculously dumb decision. But it worked. Because the story we told ourselves was we were not going to live in the box that other people put us in. We were going to take a chance, a risk on ourselves. And for 14 years, I got to live out this most amazing ride. And then in 2020, Kirk passed away. He had a thyroid issue, his organs shut down. I saw him on Monday. He went into the hospital on Tuesday, and by 2 a.m. Wednesday morning, he had passed away. And this, of course, is in the middle of our pandemic, so it's not like everybody else wasn't going through their stuff. But here's the thing is that I realized at this time, again, that I had the opportunity to tell myself the story the way that I wanted to tell it. Because Kirk had a way of just bringing in humor and lightness to his stories. His stories were actually a little bit more traumatic, a little bit more heavy than mine, but he found this way to make them funny. You know, I remember this story he used to tell when he was 7 years old. He would always say, I was very sensitive. I was a little bit pudgy, and I was sensitive, and I was poor, so I got made fun of a lot by the kids. And one day, when I was in second grade, I lost my favorite earmuffs, and they were like brown and crusty, but I loved them because they just meant so much to me. And I was crying, and the way he tells it, he's like, and there was snot coming out of my nose, and I was, and I knew that the other kids were going to make fun of me if I told them I was crying because I lost my earmuffs. So when they started asking me, what's wrong, I realized I had to make up a lie. Now, I was 7 years old, so I wasn't very good at making up lies at the time, but the first thing that I thought of that came to my mind was, I know, I'll tell him something that will justify the amount of tears that I'm shedding right now. I'll tell him my dad died. Which was a really stupid lie because his father came to pick him up after school that day. So there he was, standing outside. He had told his teachers, the principal, all of his friends, this ridiculous story, and his dad pulls up around the corner in the same Woody station wagon that he picked him up every day in. And they're all like, isn't that your dad? And he's like, he's alive! And he runs to the car, and he jumps in the car, and he gives him a big kiss and a hug, and he's like, let's get the hell out of here. And I love that he always brought humor into our work. I love that even though he had a difficult upbringing, he was able to bring laughter and joy and passion into other people's lives. And so I had this opportunity, another difficulty that I was faced with in my life, a choice to make. Do I think, why did this happen, and live in that sorrow for as long as I want to, or do I decide to embrace this amazing ride that we shared together? And so every call that I got, every email that I got, every text message I got, or social media post about him, I actually picked up the phone and I called that person to thank them. And we told stories, and we laughed, and we cried. But I embraced that moment of being able to tell the story the way that I wanted to. And I think that's really important, because especially right now, we have so much conflict around us with the way that people tell each other these stories. We're right. My view is better. I'm different than you. You don't understand me. We're constantly repeating these stories to ourselves, and we can see what it's doing to each other. We can see what it's doing to our society, to our community. I had this beautiful, eye-opening experience when I was in the military. I was just getting back into my mindfulness practice. I've been practicing meditation on and off since I was 4 years old, but when I moved to Michigan, it wasn't as accepted as it is now. So I didn't really talk about it. And I was in the military, which I also thought was probably not the best place to talk about it. But I had this roommate, and he had some, let's just say, severe anger issues. And he got into an altercation with a superior enlisted soldier, with a sergeant. And aside from the normal reprimands, some pay doc, and some extra duty, they required him to go to mindfulness classes, which I thought was really interesting. So about 6 weeks in, he and I are getting ready to go to the grocery store because it's Memorial Day weekend. And in the military, holidays are huge. And in big cities like DC, it's even more packed, more big. And so we're super excited. We just get off duty. We're in our greens, our BDUs, our camo, and we head to the grocery store. We load up this big shopping cart, and we're pushing it around the store, and we're super excited for the weekend. And we get into the grocery line, and my roommate is very type A, okay? And for those of you who are unfamiliar with that, he thinks that the way that he thinks is the right way, and it has to be done that way. Every single thing has a way to do it, right? So we notice ahead of us, maybe about 4 or 5 people, there's a woman probably in her late 50s, early 60s, and she's holding a baby, and she has one item in her hand. And for whatever reason, this is enough to irritate him, because what he says to me is, that's what the express lane is for. You're holding up all the people with lots of groceries because you're standing in our line with one item. So I'm like, okay, man. I'm like, just, calm down. Now, this is the type of person also who would say something in the middle of a crowd and cause a big scene because he feels like what he thinks needs to be shared by everybody else. So I'm, worried because we're in our BDUs. We're supposed to be conscious of how we're representing ourselves when we're in public. And so I lean over to him and I'm like, listen, this is the perfect opportunity to practice what you've been learning. Why don't you just do some of your breathing? We'll get there. She'll get through the line. It's all good. No worries. So I can, he's kind of to himself, but I see him start to take some deep breaths and, he's stopped fidgeting as much. I'm like, okay, we're going to be all right. So eventually this woman gets to the cashier and the cashier starts oogling over this baby. I mean, like hardcore. And I can hear him like, oh, we're going to be, and I'm like, hey, relax. I'm like, take a deep breath. Take it, it's going to be okay. And then the cashier reaches for the baby. She pulls the baby into her arms, and I look over, I'm like, oh no. And I look over at him, and I know it's going to be okay because when he looks at me, he goes, well, it is a cute baby. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness. So the lady eventually moves through the line. We get up to the cashier, and he was able to handle himself is the way that I think about it. It's not like he did it gracefully, but he was able to catch himself enough in that moment to turn the story but it didn't stop him from being, what. And so he needed to say something to her to let her know that he saw that she was oogling the baby. Not in a mean way, but just subtle enough, that she knows. And so he says, oh, that was really cute baby that you were oogling over there for a while. And she's scanning our items as he says this, and she stops and she looks up. She says, thank you. She says, actually, that was my daughter. She says, just like you guys, my husband was also in the military, but he died on his last deployment. And so my mother watches my daughter, and she tries to bring him into the grocery store once a day so that I can see her because now I have to work full time to support our family. And so she has to buy one item in the store so she can come through my line and I get to see my daughter. And in that moment, I realized we so often tell ourselves these stories that are unnecessary. They don't do us any good. They cause us pain. They divide us. But so often, if we're just willing to take that moment, that breath, notice what thoughts are running through our mind. Notice if our bodies feel good generating those kind of thoughts. We might be able to hold off for just 1 second to understand what's actually happening, right? Because there's our truth, there's their truth, and then somewhere in the middle, there's the truth. So often we jump to conclusions because we want our truth to be right so badly, even if it doesn't help us. So I want to leave you with this little parable that I love. I heard one of my teachers shared with me one time. There are 2 monks, and they're traveling back to the monastery after a long sabbatical in silence. And as they're coming back towards the monastery, they have to cross this river. And as they approach the river, they notice a young woman with a large basket of food. The river is extremely fast that day, and she's having a little bit of difficulty crossing with this large basket. And she asks them, could you help me cross the river? Now, these monks have taken vows in which they're not allowed to touch somebody of the opposite sex. But the older monk thinks for a moment, gets close to her, bends down and says, hop on my back, I will carry you over. And they work slowly across the river. They get to the other side. He gently places her down. They go their separate ways and they begin walking. And the first hour is silence, second hour is silence, third hour is silence. And finally, the young monk runs up to the old monk and he says, I cannot believe that you touched a woman. How could you break that sacred vow? And the older monk looks at the younger monk and says, my young brother, I set her down when we crossed the river. It seems like you are the one that's still carrying her. And I think we could all if we're being honest with ourselves, look at some of the things that we're probably carrying that we don't need to carry anymore. What could we set down on the other side of that river that would help us today? Because in the end, they are all stories. So why not tell yourself a good one? Thank you.
I know this is gonna sound so terrible for my instrument player, because we just rehearsed a song that I was supposed to play right now. But according to the story I just heard here, I'm gonna change the song. So that's gonna be she knows me, when we are on stage, I always change the programs according to the audience and according to the story. Because his story is really amazing. Imagine someone like to tell you that you have cancer, it has gone all over your body, and they give you limited time, and they start telling you, what do you want to do with that time? That's a very difficult question, because you want to grow up, you have to be a grandpa, you see your grandsons, blah, blah. But that means all the things you were expecting in the future, they have been cut, and everything they have made it short, so you don't have any hope for that. So this song, it's gonna be, it's called Be Happy. Be happy for what you are. Sometimes we feel like you are here, but you don't feel like you may feel like you are sick, but there are some people who are living in a very hard life, And for you are breathing, you are eating, you can talk, you can move, but there are some people who are on oxygen, they can't even check their head like this. And guess what? Those people, they have a lot of money, they are very rich. But money can't even change that. But because of God, be happy for what you are. Be happy for what you have right now. Be happy that you can breathe, and you can speak, and you can smile. You should just be happy for that. Ebiseera bingi mbeere nga mbooza abaati oyoyo kenina akatono ke kange rabayo beera nga mulaba beera nga oyo beera nga musinza oyo Yesu beera nga oyo beera musinza bulijjo Be happy for what you have, be happy for what you have, be happy for what you have, be happy. story to tell you. I have a story to listen in. I have a story to tell you. I have a story to listen in. I had a dream yesterday. I was sitting near to the car. I was smiling with him. He told my son, don't cry, don't cry. You are safe with me. Don't lose hope. You are safe with me. Hey! Be happy for what you are. Be happy for what you believe. Be happy for what you have. Be happy. Be happy. I'm happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. Always a pleasure to have you here with us. Great music. Thank you. Gabriel, thank you for being here. The message, so much to think about. Thank you. Real quick, the mock election for me in high school, I think was something along the lines, this should tell you a little bit about me, most likely to explore his tuba. Yeah.
Wait, is that special music?
You know, pull the tuba back out. We'll see what that looks like. I am Paul Marquis. I am a member of your board of trustees. I'd like to have you join me in the board affirmation. I have the strength to accomplish all that is mine to do. And as we take our tithes and love offerings in our hands, say the offertory blessing. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God.
I'm going to think about that for a while, Paul. Oh, so announcements. We kind of have them up here on the front. Unity and Community will meet today after service. Spiritual Cafe will have their final meeting this week. If you haven't been to 1 and 2, that's okay. You can come to the third one. It's a fabulous, fabulous experience. So Spiritual Cafe will have its last opportunity this Wednesday at 1:30, I believe. We do need some volunteers to care for the pew pockets and watering the plants, which is a weekly event. If you're interested in that, have the time for that, reach out to Tracy, and she can get that all coordinated with you. The prayer group meets at 11? At 11 a.m. on Tuesdays. Everyone welcome. And then Karen asked, and I'll let her fill in if she wants to, is anybody interested in doing, assisting, organizing, helping with Circulation Day? for those people who remember that event. Karen, I don't know if you want to, is there anything you want to add to that as far as what Circulation Day is, or? All right, anything else, Karen, or you good? All right, and now if you will please stand, we'll do the, oh, sorry, the main event. Main event next week. Joe Brown will be our guest speaker, and so you most certainly want to be here for that. The title of her talk will be Back to Basics, so we are looking forward to that. Sorry, Joe. So now, if you will please stand, and we will recite the prayer for protection together. And then we'll sing the peace song. And again, as a reminder, it's cold and flu season, COVID season still, so holding hands, if not everybody's comfortable with that, so please respect your neighbor. So let's say our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.